In a previous video I did about singular they and neopronouns, I also touched a bit upon prescriptivism. However, it certainly felt somewhat lopsided and I didn't go into too much detail on it. This time around, I want to dive a bit deeper into prescriptivism and also compare more with descriptivism. So without further ado, let's begin. Let's say there were two people, Emma and Kenny. Emma is a native English speaker. Kenny is also a native English speaker. Emma says, "Yesterday, me and my friend went to the park." Kenny says, "Nuh-uh. Yesterday, my friend and I went to the park. Speak proper English." Or let's say there were two people, Hai Tao and Si Cong. Hai Tao is a native Mandarin speaker. Si Cong is also a native Mandarin speaker. Hai Tao says, 气死我了你. Si Cong says, 你说错了，你气死我了。为什么你的普通话这么差? Or let's say there were two people, Paola and Andrea. Paola is a native Italian speaker. Andrea is also a native Italian speaker. Paola says, "Sono contenta che tu sei venuta." Andrea says, "No. Sono contenta che tu sia venuta. Che stupida." Now what do all three of these scenarios have in common? That's right, prescriptivism. To recap, prescriptivism is the idea that there should be a certain way people are using language, as in people ought to follow certain rules regarding language use, as in speaking or writing in a correct way. Use the nominative case instead of the objective case, the sentence structure should be subject, verb, object, and use the subjunctive mood to denote opinions. Most linguists aren't prescriptivists, they are descriptivists. Descriptivists simply figure out how language actually is used. They don't enforce any rules, but rather are just there to observe natural patterns in speech and other aspects of language use. They don't necessarily believe in a correct way of using language. In the scenarios I mentioned earlier, a descriptivist linguist might say, the objective case sounds more natural for native speakers. Most native speakers reserve the nominative case for when there is one clear subject. However, both are equally as valid. Mandarin word order is pretty flexible. It's also a topic prominent language. The thing being talked about takes priority and comes first, before the comment. 我 is the topic and 你 is the comment. However, both are equally as valid. The subjunctive mood is being used less and less. Most native speakers prefer the indicative mood. It happens. However, both are equally as valid. In other words, prescriptivism prescribes, descriptivism describes. Now that we have developed a deeper understanding of what prescriptivism and descriptivism are, let's observe the pros and cons of both. First up, prescriptivism. I'll start off with the pros. Yes, there are actually some positives to prescriptivism. Having some guidelines with regards to language use can help in terms of aiding communication. Here, try understanding this sentence in Scottish English. You'd better just call Kenny. This means you'd better just go easy, as in with regards to a certain task. See what I mean? Even though the sentence is in English, a lot of English speakers outside of Scotland will have a hard time understanding this, because they might not know what call Kenny means. Having some guidelines set in place can help make sure people actually understand what others are saying. That is the whole point of language, to communicate. Generally speaking, these guidelines are solidified in the context of a standard language, one that is used in education, jobs, the government, and other situations. Having a standard language could also unify and bring people together. We saw this happen with standard Italian. Thanks to the works by Dante Alighieri, such as the Divine Comedy, or as the Italians would call it, Divina Commedia, which he wrote in his Florentine dialect, and the unification of Italy, which a lot of Italians commonly refer to as the Risorgimento, it helped set the stage for an Italian state with Standard Italian as its official language and a bunch of Italians who would set you on fire for putting pineapple on pizza. As you can see, standardized forms of language use can offer us many opportunities, and we can thank prescriptivism for that. However, it is to be said that language is constantly, and I mean constantly, changing. There are no rules set in stone. The structures of language are fluid. This is where descriptivism comes in, and is one of the main reasons why most linguists are descriptivists. Here's a sentence in Old English. See if you can understand it. Me licas se snau fosonse heides saburg stille. This means, I like the snow because it makes the city quiet. See how different it is from modern English? The phonology, lexicon, grammar, and orthography of a language are always evolving to suit the needs of a population. Also, having a standard does not mean that people must only use that standard and that all the other dialects or varieties can screw off. That's another reason why most linguists are descriptivists. Descriptivists don't judge. They are only here to observe and see what you have to say or write. And besides, no one consciously decides how they use a language. People tend to mistake the varieties of a language as improper forms of said language, but in reality, those varieties have their own unique grammar and other linguistic features that set them apart from the standard. Take AAVE for instance, which is short for African American Vernacular English. Here is a sentence in AAVE. He be working. Some people might call this broken English, but this is actually how AAVE marks the habitual aspect. The habitual aspect denotes what action is usually done. In this sentence, it's the action of working that is usually done. This is AAVE possessing its own unique features that are linguistically rich, just like any other English variety. There's no such thing as right or wrong ways of using a language. There are only standard and non-standard ways of using a language. But it's important to remember that both a standard language and linguistic diversity are equally as important. Both prescriptivism and descriptivism are important and have their roles in guiding our perception of language use. Period. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.